It began with a conversation that seemed innocent enough, a playful comment, a moment of chemistry, a hint of something bigger. "Yeah. Well, I liked you right away," she said. "Did he tell you," Warren replied, "that you said we should make out?" She laughed. "No, it was after that. I just looked at the show and thought, she's really, really good." Those were simple words. But for Warren Beatty, the man famous for dating over 12,000 women, the man who spent decades guarding his emotions, the man Hollywood called its most dangerous romantic, that moment became something he never forgot. And now, at 88 years old, Warren Beatty is finally breaking his silence. For decades, he avoided interviews. He dodged anything that touched his private life. He let rumors and legends swirl around him. But in a new, rare confession, he reveals the truth. Behind the glamorous headlines, behind Madonna, Julie Christie, Diane Keaton, Leslie Corrin, Natalie Wood, there was one woman who broke his heart in 1974. A woman he still calls his greatest mistake. And today, we're telling that story from a shy Southern boy to a Hollywood icon, to the love he couldn't keep and the secret he couldn't bury. Warren Beatty, born Henry Warren Beatty, entered the world on March 30th, 1937, in Richmond, Virginia. His family was tight-knit, academic, and deeply rooted in the Baptist faith. They moved from Richmond to Norfolk to Arlington, always carrying that sense of order and discipline with them. His mother, Kathleen, was a high school drama teacher. Their home was filled with scripts, rehearsals, and stories. Warren absorbed it all quietly. She didn't push him to act. She just lived it, breathed it, and let him witness the magic. His father, Ira, was a psychologist, a calm thinker, a man who believed in structure and reason. He watched his children carefully, always analyzing. Always understanding their Nova Scotian grandparents added another layer, simpler, softer, grounded, and somewhere in this mix of discipline, creativity, and constant movement, a performer was quietly being born. Warren was not loud, not flamboyant, not the center of attention. He observed, listened, then mimicked. As a child, he would sit in corners practicing impressions of Milton Berle and Al Jolson, not because anyone asked, but because he loved slipping into someone else's skin. Every time his family moved, he learned how to read people, how to adapt, and how to blend in, skills that later made him Hollywood's most intelligent seducer. Then, one moment changed everything. The 1950 re-release of the Philadelphia Story, not the romance, not the comedy, but the idea of performance, the electricity of it. A spark lit inside him at Washington Lee High School. Warren reinvented himself. He became the star quarterback, tall, athletic, handsome, confident. He got straight A's. He became class president. Colleges lined up with 10 full football scholarship offers. Everyone thought he'd go pro, but he didn't, because by then, his sister Shirley MacLaine was already shining on Broadway. And watching her succeed made him realize something important. He didn't want stadiums, he wanted stages. He wanted scripts. He wanted stories. He turned down every scholarship, every opportunity. His father didn't protest. Instead, he surprised him. He said, maybe leaving school is a sign. Maybe it means you're meant for something else. Warren listened. In 1954, he enrolled at Northwestern University. He joined a fraternity. He tried liberal arts, but he lasted only a year. The classroom wasn't his stage. New York City was at 18. Warren Beatty moved into a tiny West Side apartment. He survived on peanut butter sandwiches and cheap rent. He worked any job he could to stay alive, dishwashing, playing piano in Low End, Long Island bars, working as a sandhog in Manhattan, tunnel stage hand jobs at the National Theater in D.C., Every experience became part of his toolkit: understanding people, mastering accents, studying emotions. Meanwhile, he trained under Stella Adler, one of the greatest acting coaches of all time. She wasn't easy on him, but he was relentless. At 22, he finally got his break in 1957. Warren appeared in Studio One's The Night America Trembled, a tiny part. But Studio One was known for shaping future legends. From there came Kraft Television, Theater Playhouse 90, The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis. Roles sharpened his instincts, but the moment that changed his fate came in 1959. He landed a role in the Broadway play A Loss of Roses. The play flopped badly, but Warren, DIDN single quotes. Director Joshua Logan saw something rare: a young actor who wasn't satisfied with good poi enough. He arranged a screen test at MGM. Warren passed. Not just passed, he electrified them. MGM signed him to a 7-year contract at $1,000 a week, massive money for someone barely in his 20s, and Hollywood took notice. Splendor in the Grass, The Birth of a Legend, 1961. Warren made his film debut in Splendor in the Grass, opposite the luminous Natalie Wood. The film explored teenage love, repression, and mental health topics rare for the time. Warren fought with legendary director Elia Kazan. Constantly, he demanded script changes. He pushed for deeper emotion. He insisted on multiple RETAs. To some, he was difficult; to others, brilliant. But there was one thing no one could deny: his performance was unforgettable. Hollywood suddenly had a new kind of leading man: handsome, fragile, emotional, unpredictable, and women noticed. A lot of women between 1959 and 1962. Warren and Natalie Wood had a passionate, turbulent love affair, but it imploded after she discovered he was seeing Joan Collins behind her back. Her heartbreak was so severe that friends say she nearly took her life. Their story never truly ended. It just faded painfully, slowly, tragically, and it followed Warren for years. Beatty wasn't interested in safe roles. He turned down PT 109, the chance to play JFK. He rejected One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He chose smaller, psychologically heavy roles over blockbusters. That's how he ended up in Mickey 1, 1965, an experimental film where he stayed in character for weeks, barely speaking to anyone. Hollywood didn't know what to do with him. He was too handsome to be a character actor, too artistic to be a conventional leading man, too rebellious to be controlled. His personal life reflected the same chaos affairs with Natalie Wood, Joan Collins, Vivian Leigh, Leslie, Coron Kim, Hunter, Julie Christie, Goldie Hawn, each one more intense, more dramatic, more consuming. Vivian Leigh, who battled bipolar disorder, became entangled with Warren during Roman's spring of Mrs. Stone. Warren later admitted he mishandled the situation and it haunted him. Julie Nee Christie remained with him for 7 years, loving him, suffering through betrayals, forgiving him, then breaking again. She once said, "He was the love of my life and the source of my greatest pain." In 1967, Warren produced and starred in Bonnie and Clyde. Studios hated it. Executives warned him it would ruin his career. They offered him 40% of the profits instead of a large salary because they assumed it would flop. He took the deal. The film made $70 million worldwide and shattered Hollywood's old rules. It launched the new Hollywood era. Dunaway's career. Warren Beatty as a generational force, but behind the triumph was devastating heartbreak. During a promotional tour, he began dating French actress Michelle Phillips. She died suddenly in a car crash at just 28. Warren never recovered from the guilt. In 1970, He starred with Elizabeth Taylor in The Only Game in Town. He made $750,000. The film bombed spectacularly. He disappeared from Hollywood for a while, working on George McGovern's political campaign. But when he returned in 1974 with The Parallax View, the role that mirrored his anger at Nixon and Watergate, something else was happening in his life. Something private, something painful, something he admits he can't forget. Because in 1974, he met the woman he calls the one I let get away. My greatest mistake, a woman who changed him forever. And in his rare confession, he finally reveals who she was. If you think Hollywood legends live charmed lives untouched by chaos, regret, or consequence, Warren Beatty's story will change your mind. Because behind the charm, behind the political confidence, behind the unmistakable smile that fueled one of the most commanding careers in film history, there was a storm. A storm he built himself, and it began long before the world ever suspected anything was wrong. In the early 1970s, Warren Beatty was a force, not just a star, the kind of celebrity who didn't just act in movies. He took them over. And in 1974, he proved it. Beatty was deep in production on a politically charged film that used real news footage from the Watergate scandal. But just as the movie was picking up momentum, he fired director Alan Pakoulias. That Alan Pakoulias took the reins himself. The crew was stunned. Hollywood was stunned. Nobody fired Pakula. But Beatty did. Production froze. The release was delayed. And when the film finally hit theaters in June 1974, its arrival collided perfectly with Watergate reaching a fever pitch. Critics didn't know what to make of the movie's tone, but audiences. They felt the paranoia. Beatty's takeover left a scar that never really healed, but the chaos had only just begun. Then came Shampoo in 1975, one of the most controversial productions Beatty ever touched. Beatty played a womanizing hairdresser, a character suspiciously similar to the man he was off-screen. And instead of separating his personal life from his film life, he blended them. His ex Julie Christie was cast. His then-girlfriend Michelle Phillips was cast. And in the middle of filming, 16-year-old Carrie Fisher caught his attention. Beatty made a move. She rejected him, and he later bragged about the entire situation publicly. The movie wasn't acting. It was reality masquerading as a screenplay. Everyone on set watched each other. The tension wasn't written, it was lived. And all of it centered around Beatty. Hollywood loved the movie, but everyone who worked on it walked away with scars. By 1978, Beatty was rolling the dice again with Heaven Can Wait, a massive fantasy film stacked with football scenes, custom-built sets, and a breathtaking $20 million price tag. Beatty co-directed it with Buck Henry. At least, that was the plan. But Beatty quietly rewrote 70% of the script without mentioning a word to his partner. When Henry found out, he was furious. He said Beatty hijacked the entire movie, and yet, because Beatty always seemed to land on his feet, the film became a hit. For Oscar nominations, a box office triumph. But Beatty lost something more important. Another burned bridge. All of that was just the warm-up. Because in the early 80s, Beatty dove headfirst into the biggest, strangest, most personal film of his life, Reds. His obsession started in the early 70s. He researched journalist and activist John Reed like a man possessed. He traveled the USSR, interviewed over 100 people, and pushed the project back year after year because he needed it to be perfect. The budget ballooned to an unbelievable $32 million. He sold his Beverly Hills mansion to keep production alive. The cast, over 200 speaking parts. The runtime? 195 minutes, and he refused to cut even one. On set, extras rioted over pay. He demanded up to 80 takes from actors. The camera rolled long after union rules said they should stop. Even Jack Nicholson Hollywood royalty nearly quit. But somehow, it worked. At the Oscars, Beatty won Best Director, and that's when he broke the internet before the internet existed. On stage, in front of his wife, Annette Bening, he thanked Julie Christie, the woman who had broken him decades earlier, and called her the love of his life. The room froze. His marriage froze. Hollywood whispered, and Beatty didn't deny it. During Reds, Beatty and Diane Keaton were in the middle of a 5-year relationship. They played John Reed and Louise Bryant partners on screen and off. But their chemistry, the thing that lit up the film, was falling apart behind the scenes. Keaton found out. Beatty was still seeing Julie Christie. Then rumors exploded about a fling with Goldie Hawn. She found love letters in his trailer. The temperature on set turned icy. Even the legendary Maureen Stapleton snapped at him after yet another of his endless takes, telling him she wasn't a machine. And yet, Reds still made $40 million, becoming one of the biggest films of 1981. Its success, its politics, its passion, all reflected Beatty himself, but so did the destruction he left behind in 1990. Beatty tried to reinvent himself with Dick Tracy. It should have been a fun comic book adaptation. Instead, it became a battlefield. The movie cost $47 million to make, and another $54 million just to market. Beatty cast Madonna Nen, then seduced her during auditions. Al Pacino confronted him. The press smelled blood. Promotions were bizarre, including 900-number contests offering vintage cars. The film made over $100 million, but tabloids overshadowed everything. Beatty couldn't escape the chaos. In truth, he didn't want to. Then came Bugsy in 1991. And something unexpected happened. Beatty fell hard for Annette Bening. By day 3 of filming, he proposed. The couple went on to have 4 children between 1992 and 1999. For a moment, looked like he'd finally settled down. But old ghosts don't stay buried. Beatty admitted to Bening that his chemistry with her didn't match what he had with Julie Christie. The wound reopened. Even success couldn't cover it. Bulworth 1998 might be Beatty's most controversial film ever. A political satire mixed with hip-hop. It drew protests from the NAACP and cost millions in rewrites and RA suits. Then there was Ishtar, the infamous disaster that cost $55 million and earned only $14 million. It nearly destroyed Columbia Pictures. Beatty walked away with $5 million. Reputation bruised but financially untouched. He turned down Forrest Gump. He turned down Superman. He turned down The Godfather. He turned down The Irishman. Because if he couldn't control everything, he didn't want it, and that control came with a price. At 79, Beatty tried one last time to reclaim Hollywood. With Rules Don't Apply, it was his passion project of more than 30 years. He wrote it, directed it, funded it. It flopped instantly. Opening weekend, $1.6 million. Worldwide total, $3.6 million. Not even 14% of its budget. The collapse was catastrophic. A lawsuit soon demanded $18 million in damages. Beatty faced more legal trouble in 2022, when a woman accused him of abusing her in 1978 when she was a teenager. The case was dismissed in 2023 not because he was proven innocent, but because of a procedural block. Beatty issued a vague apology about youthful indiscretions. Hollywood watched in discomfort. And then, he disappeared. By 2025, Beatty barely left his Los Angeles home. Insiders whispered about frailty, forgetfulness, memory problems. Others insisted it was vanity, that he didn't want the world to see him old. Skipped his daughter Ella's Broadway debut in 2025. He skipped premieres, parties, reunions, even the family events he once cherished. A film he made with Annette Bening, The Women of the Castle, has been finished for years, but remains locked away because he refuses to release it. Beatty had become a ghost in his own legacy. Through all of this, one person stayed lodged in his heart like a splinter. Julie Christie. Their story began in 1966 after a Royal Command performance in London. They were Hollywood's golden duo for nearly a decade, starring together in McCabe and Mrs. Miller, and later, Shampoo. Beatty wanted marriage, children, a life together. Christie wanted. She ended it over the phone in 1974. Beatty never recovered, even decades later. He told her she was the standard he measured all women by. She stayed at his guest house with her husband in 2020, and in a quiet interview in 2025, he finally said the words he had spent 40 years avoiding. "She's the ghost I can't shake." He even dedicated Reds his most personal film, his masterpiece, to her. That wasn't a tribute, it was a confession. In 2023, another lawsuit surfaced, alleging Beatty manipulated a 14-year-old girl at a shampoo after-party decades earlier. It was dismissed in 2025, but the damage was done. Beatty was no longer a presence, not even a public one, just a name tied to brilliance and controversy. He retreated deeper into isolation, surrounded by old scripts, old film reels, and memories he couldn't outrun. Hollywood moved on, but Beatty stayed frozen, trapped between regret and the life he wished he'd lived. Warren Beatty, a man who shaped Hollywood for 60 years, now sits in the quiet of his home, scribbling down ideas for a film about his 1972 political campaign. He once called that campaign the most important moment of his life, and yet, the cameras have stopped rolling. All that remains is the script he never finished. The one where he stays young. The one where Julie never leaves. The one where he doesn't grow old. The one where he can still control everything. The movie that never existed except in Warren Beatty's mind.